workshop, what I've found through these workshops is that everyone's at a different place with what they're looking for right now. And so I have an agenda. My agenda is twofold, right? I want to help you convince the hires up at your firms where necessary that your cybersecurity and data privacy is critical for your law firm. Now, again, many firms are in that place where we know we need to invest. We know we need to spend the time and the effort to actually make things right. But a lot of firms aren't there. So I actually have a worksheet tool to help get through that process. But even for the firms that are not in that place, where they have to convince the higher ups, this worksheet is also helpful as well. A lot of good insight. Then also, hey, let's get a head start on that assessment. That's what I want to do. So that's twofold. So Jason, I'll ask you first. I like to make sure that everybody gets out of this what they want. Is there anything in particular that you want me to go over in the next 30 minutes, 25 minutes? Is there anything particular for you?
Nothing in particular. I'm just kind of getting a refresh on, you came out and did a webinar at one of our local law firms here, and I was getting a refresher on how it works and what it does.
Okay, no worries. Okay. And we'll be talking a little bit more throughout this. And how about you, John? Is there anything specific you're looking to get out of this today?
Well, again, nothing in particular other than when you send me this thing. I thought you were going to present what your toolkit in general and what you are doing or what its aim is.
That's what we're doing. That's good news, right? So you'll definitely be getting a value out of this here. Hang on a second, I got a prompt on my screen. I'll make sure I get rid of that one. Okay, perfect. So, okay, guys, then I think I accidentally muted you guys. Give me a second. I hate these controls. Sometimes they're wonky. Unmute all attendees? Yes. Okay, sorry. All right. Can somebody unmute real quick just so I can test to make sure that you guys have control rather than me? Okay. Looks like Jason unmuted for a second. Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Okay, good. All right. So let's get busy. Hey, listen. Here's what I used to tell law firms. Okay. It really, when it came to cybersecurity, data privacy, and compliance, there was really, unless you're in a particular type of practice area, like maybe something is governed by HIPAA, or maybe PCI, or some other governing body, even GDPR now. It really, if you weren't governed by one of those, it was really according to the ABA model rules and the various states that adopted these model rules, in particular Comment 8 of Rule 1.1. It was really up to the law firm, because these three R letters, words really kind of said it all, right? Requisite, risks, and relevant. Well, they're very subjective to the person reading this particular comment. So this used to be the rule of law, if you will, when it came to data privacy in firms that were not otherwise regulated in regulated areas of law. So if you're like a personal injury attorney and you're dealing with medical records, obviously HIPAA would apply to you. So if you're not in that type of area, it really was up to you. Well, you know what? As of last month, this came out, and Formal Opinion 483. My business partner / lawyer is speaking on this at 3 o'clock today. Opinion 483. Now, if you guys aren't familiar with this, I'm happy to get you a copy of it. But this opinion just came out last month, and it basically starts to lay down the law when it comes to various aspects of cybersecurity. In particular, this is about data breach, right? Data breach notification. And obviously, it's pretty much spelling it out nowadays. You do have a responsibility as a lawyer, the lawyers in the firms have responsibilities when it comes to data breach notification. This is just going to get further and further and further down the road. We're not going to get away from dealing with data privacy, compliance, cybersecurity, data breach notification, so on and so forth. So it all starts in our opinion. We've been doing this for like 6 years now, working with law firms for 25 years, but specifically in cybersecurity with law firms for about 6 to 7 years. we needed a way for law firms to help start to assess themselves. And that's what we did, is we developed a toolkit for ourselves, right? Oh gosh, I'm not sharing the screen. Sorry guys. Somebody should have said, hey, your screen's not moving. Sorry guys. My apologies for this. Now I'm totally embarrassed. So this is the 3 R's: requisite, relevant, and risk, the risk associated. I'll edit the video and get it out to you guys so this will make more sense when you see. But this was what it used to be, what law firms were used to be held to up until last month, where this data breach formal opinion came out. And now this is really kind of the start of the rule of law when it comes to law firms, whether they're regulated or not. Law firms, the smackdown is going to be put more and more on law firms. So we developed a tool we needed a tool to help firms do assessments in firms. So we developed one for ourselves. Well, as we started using this tool, we realized that, hey, this is pretty valuable. We could probably help out a lot of firms, and we turned it out to the public in what we call version 1, and that was the Cybersecurity Due Diligence Toolkit. And again, John, I know you don't have that, but I will make sure you get it after this call. I'll send out the current version of this. So this toolkit was great for us because we would go into law firms. We evaluated probably 75 firms using our tools in like a matter of 2 years, anywhere from 10 staffers all the way up to 250 staffers in law firms. So, and this tool was great, but we wanted to help the industry assess themselves. So we published it as a tool. We cleaned it up a little bit, made it a marketing tool, and put it out there for people to actually start using. But what we always have professed is that you are not even close to being finished with after you do an assessment. There's so much involved. You do an assessment, you put an action plan together, you determine the cybersecurity framework that you need to follow based on criteria of your law firm and what fits your law firm, and that's really kind of up to every law firm to a degree, depending on whether they're regulated or not. And then, of course, there has to be ongoing management and action plans and fire drills and so on and so forth. So the only thing we're going to talk about right now is that assessment and how to use our toolkit, number 1, if you will. So what I did is I created a rapid assessment worksheet. Now, the best way to describe the worksheet is to explain to you how I used it. Now, so here I sit with this company, SpliceNet Legal Tech, and my job is to go sell and make money, just like every other business in the world, right? But it was challenging when it came to cybersecurity because people didn't buy into the concept of it. So I needed a way to help them start to buy into the idea and concept of cybersecurity. I mean, this is 5 and 6 years ago, right? People were like, just barely worried about pop-ups on their computers and things of that nature. So cybersecurity was just kind of a thing. It was like, why do I need to even worry about that? So I created this worksheet, and this worksheet for you guys is the same thing as it is to me. The difference is I'm using it to generate interest in my clients. You'll use the worksheet to generate interest in your higher ups at your law firms, the powers that be, whether it's a managing partner, whether it's a technology or cybersecurity committee, or whoever it might be. And that's how the worksheet works. So the worksheet is made in such that it's supposed to spark interest and start to build concern and help people formulate more and more questions. The worksheet, the questions in the worksheet are very leading and very targeted. There's usually an undertone in every one of the questions on the worksheet, and I want you guys to be able to use these worksheets the same way, okay? So let's kind of get right into the worksheet and talk about it. So if you don't mind, if you will click on your screen, click on the link for the rapid assessment worksheet in the chat window, and I'll bring it up on my screen, okay? And I don't know, you guys see that okay? Do I need to blow it up at all? Do I need to zoom in at all? I'm going to zoom it in a little bit here. Can you guys see that okay?
I can see it. I don't see the download for that, though.
There is no download for it. It is a link in the chat window to a web page.
Yeah,
I don't see the link either.
Yeah.
Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get it to pop up on your screens again, guys. Hang on a second here. Hang on. should have got a chat window pop up.
There it is now.
All right. And there's a link inside there. You can just go and click on that link, and it'll bring up a open up your web page.
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Did you get that too? Okay, Jason.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, guys, listen. I emulated my worksheet, which is a document, okay, in a Microsoft form. This is not the worksheet. Just so you know, this is just an emulation. This is not the complete worksheet. This is an incomplete worksheet just for this workshop we've got today. So not all of the questions are on here. And again, I will resend out the full toolkit to you guys when we get off of this call. But this is just for practice. So let's dissect this, okay? Let's take apart some of these questions and let's actually go through it. And I understand that you may or may not be able to answer these questions for your firms, and that's okay. I know that most firms are probably going to work with technology professionals or other people that understand processes and procedures and things like that in the firm. But what I want you to understand is that the worksheet is meant to help you generate the interest from the higher ups. Okay, if you've already got buy-in from the higher ups, these will help help generate questions during an assessment that you may want to come up with and evaluate. So you can just go off of our scripted assessment toolkit, or you can come up with additional ones. So think about it like this. Take the first question, for example. Does our IT insist we need more than a firewall and antivirus to protect us adequately, right? Okay, well, if you're in a great big firm, this may not be a question that you would really need to worry about too much because you've got committees and people watching over this stuff. But if you're in a firm that doesn't really have a full IT staff, you've got two things here to consider. One, this question says that, hey, inherently this question, an undertone is that we need more than an antivirus and firewall. But also on top of that, the first part of it indicates that your technology department should be insisting something, right? So this should start conversation and start us thinking about what is it that we should be, this is from a partner's perspective, what is it we should be hearing from our technology committees or from our technology departments, right? Not so much about the firewall and antivirus. That's not the most important thing in this question. It's more about the dialogue, right? And the idea of the worksheet is that we answer this question, yes, we do talk to our technology departments or our technology committees, and they do make recommendations above and beyond simple technologies like firewalls and antivirus, right? And so that we would either justify, yes, they do, and put a similar response as I've got in here, or we would say, no, we don't have regular meetings with our technology department and talk about things like firewalls and antiviruses and technologies to protect us. So the idea of this particular question and the rest of them is we either say yes to the question and justify our answer of yes, or we say no and we would put together an action plan. So yeah, we would say no here. Well, what should we do? Well, we should have a meeting with a technology committee or a technology department, and we should talk about the various types of securities necessary. So again, I don't want to waste your time typing in answers here, but I want to go through a few more of these in this worksheet so you can kind of see how these are designed. So question number 2, we have more than just spam software to keep email-borne threats from getting into our systems. Look, the undertone here is there's more, right? And a lot of times what we're finding in the firms that we go into, whether it's, a 200-person law firm or a 50-person law firm, a lot of times the partners and people that are in charge don't know because they're not having these conversations. So the answer would be yes, we do have more, or no, we don't have more. We need to find out what that is. And again, start that dialogue. The worksheet is really all about generating interest in starting a dialogue about cybersecurity. So I'm going to hop down to like question number 5 on this, right? Some higher level stuff, right? We employ and monitor one or more of the following: DLP, data rights management software, data encryption, multi-factor authentication or SIEM. So what I have found is there are so many law firms with people actually in technology departments that don't know what these things are, don't know what's available to them. So when you start throwing things out here, like these acronyms and these and you start defining these things to them, they're like, well, what is that? Why do we need that? And again, it's all about starting dialogue. So answer the question, no. And what's the action plan? We need to discuss what MFA is, for example. That's an action plan, okay? All right? That's really the idea of the worksheet. I'm not going to go too much more into it because I want to hop over into the actual assessment tool itself. But here's some other really good questions in the worksheet. We require our vendors to execute confidentiality agreements so that they meet minimum requirements. I can't tell you how many law firms I've walked into and I'm about ready to do a cybersecurity assessment for them, and they have not asked me to sign a confidentiality agreement. So I myself have actually had one put together by our attorneys that turn the tables on it and say, hey guys, here's our confidentiality agreement. We're signing for you to hold us in confidence to our conversation with you. So many firms don't think about this. We are also coming out with a tool that it'll be a free tool that complement the toolkit that will help firms hold their vendors, whether it's a coffee dispenser vendor or a carpet cleaning carpet company, or it's a court reporting service, holding them accountable and to the law firm and to meet minimum requirements that the law firm sets forth. So you'll hear more about that coming out soon, but it'll be a free thing. You guys will really enjoy this. So as we dive deeper into the worksheet, the questions on the worksheet get more and more higher level. We use outside consultants. We use cybersecurity consultants, yes or no, you know. These are higher level questions. And again, it's really to grow that interest from a small concern into a great big concern. And that's how we've used the worksheet. Similarly, we would expect that the people that would use our toolkit would use the worksheet as well to sell as necessary and continue that cycle of growing the concern in the law firm. Okay. So at the very end, I mean, we get into some very, very deep stuff. Let's talk about your cybersecurity frameworks. Well, you know what? If we're not even talking about firewalls or antivirus, I'm sure we're not going to be talking about CSC or, you know, NIST frameworks and so on and so forth. And you may or may not know what these are, and that's not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the people that don't know what these are, they see this and they say, well, wait a second, this is much deeper than I've ever thought, and it's going to generate that interest. Now, after that interest is generated, after you've done the worksheet, and now we have a basis to actually have conversation about cybersecurity, about, you know, working towards data privacy, working towards compliances. Now we move into actually doing some assessments. Now the assessment toolkit, again, we still have Rev 1. Rev 2 will be released. We're expecting early next week. And it'll be a much deeper assessment toolkit for the firms. In the beginning, it was really meant for our purposes, and we just kind of labeled it and put it in a PDF and sent it out to a bunch of different people. They really liked it, and they got a lot of benefit from it. So the assessment toolkit next week will be a really deep dive into compliances, data privacy, whereas in the past it was more high level. But let's get into that toolkit. So if you are in that same chat window, if you can scroll up right above the chat that I gave before, you might see the link for the assessment. I'm going to repaste it. Give me a second here. Hang on a second here. And I just put the assessment for our workshop in the chat window. Can you guys get to that okay?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. And that'll just bring up a different web page. And by the way, you guys can go back to these anytime you want. I won't be taking these down. It's kind of funny. This is actually as we started doing these, we realized, hey, we're going to create an application. And this is kind of the start of the application, but it's a lot more than just online forms. So let's talk about the toolkit. This gets into the specific questions. What type of firewall do we have? What does it do for us? What are we utilizing in it? What aren't we utilizing in it? Now, the toolkit, the way it's designed, is to actually collect this real information. It's not necessarily meant to sell. Now, candidly, when we used it with our law firm customers, the idea was to say, hey, you don't have a really good firewall. We should probably put one in and manage it. But that's not the intention here. For you guys, it's to uncover the weaknesses, to find the strengths, to find the shortcomings, and find, in different areas. Now, I'm going to really quick show you a couple things. We talk about some technology here higher up, right? But as this gets deeper and deeper, we start talking about maintaining device consistency. We talk about, what are we doing for antivirus? Is it updated, monitored, and managed? And what do we do when we get alerts? Do we have password policies? Are we using web filtering software? And as we go down further, we get deeper and deeper into conversation. Do we have a technology acceptable use policy? How is it distributed? How often is it reviewed, right? So the idea of the assessment is to really get deep into what we actually have, okay? And then once you've actually determined everything you have, so if we come in here and say, you know what, our firm doesn't really have none of our vendors, right? Well, that's a big red flag, okay? And these are items that we should be focusing on, especially if we have a particular compliance framework that we're supposed to be following. So, like, for example, what is that? What are we regulated by? Well, we're regulated by what we don't know. We've never really investigated it, right? We don't know what applies to our practice areas. We don't know what applies to our firm. So we would have to put a great big, we don't know. And that would be a great big red flag for us to go figure out. The idea of the assessment is to start generating those questions. What do we need to do? And then this is not a framework. It loosely, this original version loosely follows some framework, but we're getting closer and closer to a particular framework. One of the things we have a difficulty with our assessment is we don't want to pigeonhole anybody into one particular framework. There's some frameworks that are more generic, some frameworks that are very specific with their recommendations from a technology perspective. With our assessment, we really want to keep it high level, okay, and not tell you what you should do, what framework you should be following. But the idea of the assessment is to actually fill in the blanks and then sit back and look at it and evaluate it. What are our red flags on it? So again, you guys can come back. We're going to fill this out more and get the entire assessment toolkit in forms, and then later on we'll have a full version of it free for people in an application. But in that toolkit, once we have done that assessment, now we got to do something with it. Well, in the toolkit, we've put together basic assessment report templates. Okay, very simple. It's very manual. From that, you see how we have put together our reports, what people should focus on. You see the detail of the assessment itself. At this point, the worksheet's kind of out of the equation, and this is all of the data from the assessment itself. And then every firm is going to be different. Now, if I was running this, we always had executive summaries because guess what? People don't really want to sit and read all of the details in the assessment, the table of information. They really want the mile high view of it. So we would always put together our executive summaries. We would always put together what within each of these areas, whether it's, hey, you've got you're really open to hackers, you've got bad data backup or data recovery processes, or you don't have a technology acceptable use policies, or you don't have end user education. We'd always put the most important stuff in the executive summary so that we can get our firms focusing on the big rocks first. And then after they've addressed the big rocks, we always kind of come back and say, okay, well, now you've got that taken care of. Let's look at the smaller stuff. What are the level 2 things that you should be looking at? So in the assessment toolkit, I'm not going to go into the details of the report. You can look over the report, but there is an entire section just on the reporting in the toolkit too. Okay. Is this Jason? I know you saw this some time ago. Is this starting to kind of spark some memories now for you? Maybe it's having a phone problem. That's all right. John, do you have any questions right now? I hope I didn't remute you guys. I'm going to make sure you guys are unmuted. Sorry if I muted you guys again. There you go.
There we go.
Were you guys talking the whole time and I didn't catch anything you said?
Oh, sure.
Now I'm embarrassed.
No, the answer is I don't have any questions. I see what you're doing. This is very similar to the kind of risk assessments we do too. I mean, different questions, yeah, but similar kind of thing. You're grading it on a scale.
Yeah, and you know what? This scale, just so you know, what we use, and you can see all the examples in the toolkit. I'll send it to you as soon as we get off the phone. You can see these were very subjective for us, right? Every firm is different. And so our grading scale was very subjective to the particular firm. Now, when we come out with this tool that we're developing, we'll have an online application. It'll be pretty objective. It'll take the subjectivity out of it. I don't think you can take it out completely when it comes to a cybersecurity assessment, because every firm is different. I mean, where you're at, and John, I happen to know where you're at. You've got so many different things that you're dealing with. And Jason, I don't know the size of your firm. I just can't recall. But where John's at, it's a little bit bigger firm, a little bit more diverse in their practice areas. So there's going to be a lot more involved. But by all means, John, take this and chop it up and use the pieces. It's not even meant to be used in whole, right? It's meant to be used the way you need to use it. So any ideas you can skim from it, we're really excited that you could benefit from it. Okay. That's really the key for us, is that you guys get the benefit from it in some form or fashion. Now, guys, I've thrown a couple things in here, and this may be really, way underneath you guys. Okay. So I always put this in here to talk about different cybersecurity strategies. I start talking about, working up from the basics, right? Let's talk about the very low end technologies when it comes to cybersecurity. We should be putting these in place at every firm at every size. No question about it. Then you go to your next level technologies. Well, you know what? When you're dealing with a 10-person law firm, they may not need a converged network edge protection firewall that does UTM. They may not need pattern recognition software or DLP, right? Maybe they can't even afford it for that matter, and the risk isn't worth the spend for them. So, but I put it in here so that every firm gets something at some level that is beneficial to them. And then, of course, I stop at level 3. Now we're talking about data privacy compliance. I think that every firm, after a certain point, can, maybe at 35 to 50 users on up to the mega firms, you're going to see just about everything and more from a level 3 strategy from cybersecurity. And again, you guys can get this PDF. But some of the things I push in here always that I never, ever stop talking about: disaster recovery, business continuity planning. I know that's not cybersecurity, but hey, guys, that is essential to keep your firms running when you do have an event, right? You need a data breach response plan. We need to be looking at that. I would definitely be holding our vendors to standards without a question. Are they doing background checks? Do they have their own data privacy policies? By the way, our application is going to focus around the vendors for law firms. Just so you know, I think you guys will really like that. And then, really, guys, I'm over 4 minutes. I can only get so much in 30 minutes, but I'll stay on here for as long as you guys want. The important thing to me is that you take the tools, you read them over, and you use them to your advantage in some form or fashion. Again, in whole or in part is okay by us. We just put it out there to the community because we've been dealing with law firms now for 25, 30 years, and we just want to help in any way that we can. So that's really kind of the best I can give you from a webinar workshop. So any questions? All right. Crickets. Unless I did something with the phones again.
I couldn't click.
That's all right.
No, I don't. Thanks for that. I have to run because I have a project call that.
No, John, thank you for hanging over.
And I need to jump onto that. So thank you. And I'll look for the link to the toolkit there.
Okay, I'll send it over to you.
All righty. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Jason, I'll hang on if you want to chime in more.
I think I'm good. I gotta head out also.
Not a problem. Not a problem. I'll send you Rev 2 on the kit next week.
Okay, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
No, thank you, sir.